Good afternoon, everybody. This is Barry Kleiman. It's afternoon where I am, in any case. I wanted to get started on this series I've been promising to record and address and use to help anybody who's had some level of confusion or lack of clarity or completely needed a refresh of how to think about themselves and how to present themselves in interview process. I believe you're almost always interviewing the questions that we're going to use. They're not questions I've made up. The next series will be based on LinkedIn's 26 most asked interview questions using their artificial intelligence. And so these are not spoon fed questions, although some of them are going to seem to be. But even with this first one, uh, LinkedIn says that the number one most asked interview question is tell me about yourself. Um, One of the reasons I think we're almost always interviewing is because that question could come to you in a number of ways. I was taking a walk yesterday down by the waterfront here in the Bay Area, and I ran into a gentleman who I haven't seen in forever. It turned out he had open heart, or a heart replacement, actually. Um, Great catching up. What are you up to? What are you doing? Um, Maybe that's not an interview, but it is. You never know when some of the things you're doing might mesh with some of the things other people are doing, and maybe make some sort of joint venture, or they can help you or you could help them. But if you say, I'm doing pretty good, that's the impression you leave. So I believe in many ways that this first question that LinkedIn uses is adds credibility to my belief that we're all almost always interviewing. So tell me about yourself is the question. So I also believe that the best interviews are conversations, not interrogations. Some people say, well, that's easier said than done, and maybe it is, but it's still what I believe is the best way to conduct what I'm going to call successful interviews. Interviews that people, both sides, walk away with what they were hoping to get from the conversation. That's what success is. Not if one side gets one thing and the other side doesn't get whatever they need out of it. And again, so successful interviewing is way different than interviewing. Interviewing is highly misunderstood. It's governed by the 300 million or more tips that you see on if you do a Google search on interview tips. Successful interviewing is based on both sides walking away with a win. Both sides walking away with something from the conversation that they didn't know before that's of value to them. You about the interviewer or the opportunity, them about you, etc. So anyway, with that said, best interviews are conversations, not interrogations. If somebody were to say to you, "Hey Barry, how you doing?" or "Tell me about what's happening with you," or whatever, I personally would say something to the extent of, "Where do you want me to start?" I'm going to start my personal life, my professional life, the last 5 years. My life as an executive coach, my life as a recruiter, my life as a basketball coach. What do you want to know? I could talk forever, obviously. But it's important, if you will, to try to get it framed so that when the your answer comes out, you're not raging on to something that the person who asking the question doesn't give a crap about. It's not what they wanted to hear. Um, People give interviewers too much credit sometimes. They think, well, just because that person is on the other side of the desk, as it were, that they're adept at the process of being an interviewer. Not always. In many ways, couldn't be anything. Nothing could be further from the truth. So that's why I go back to the best interviews are conversations, not interrogations. So I would say, where do I start? Personal life, professional life, my last job. It all depends on the context. But from the very first moment, if you can find a way to turn that question, interview question, into a conversation versus an interrogation, you're going to be ahead of the game and you're actually going to be functional and successful in the interview. If the interviewer says, look, just answer the question, I'm here to ask the questions, that could happen. And then you learn a lot about who that person is and the way they handle interpersonal communications, which again, maybe it's fine with you. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do or be when they grow up. I'm really here to talk about successful interviewing. So, as I said in many of the preceding videos, you have to decide what success looks like for you. You have to decide what you want to happen. It could be that you'll take any level of haranguing and verbal abuse just to get a job. That wouldn't be me, but I don't have to live your life nor you mine. So, last time, tell me about yourself. The first thing I would do is find out what context they want to hear. And then, of course, I'll say this in this question and all 26 left, and whatever you bump into me anywhere, be honest. Here's what I'm doing. I got a bad hip. I was out walking today because I was kind of stretch out my hip. Otherwise, I'm doing really well. I just took a new job. I just started a nonprofit, and tell your story. It really should be easy if you do a little preparation ahead of time. So lose the idea. This is, again, my opinion, but I've done this. I'm an old man, and I've made my living at teaching this to people. Lose the idea that they're stock or canned answers. Lose the idea of going to Google for tips about if he says this, you say that. Lose that idea and try to turn the conversation into an interrogation and then tell them about yourself. You should know all your stories. We talk about this quite a bit in the upcoming book. You should have your story set. And I guess we can talk about that more when the book comes out. I'll get into the story part, but you should be able to talk about yourself. You just need to know the context and not guess what the other side wants to hear. Okay. So anyway, that's it. I hope that helps. Tell me about yourself. Kind of a daunting question. I think LinkedIn says it's asked. I think over 4 million people looked at the answer to that question. I doubt 4 million people will look at this answer to that question, but that's still my answer. I hope you're having a great day, everybody, and we'll get to the next one tomorrow. LinkedIn's second most asked interview question. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.